Hi everyone, welcome back to the Java series. So we are done with the arrays concept. So in this session we are going to talk about one of the most important and widely used class in the Java, that is string class. So string in the Java is nothing but an object that represents a sequence of the characters. Okay, so internally string is going to use character array to store the data. For example, here if we write string s is equals to Java, this is equivalent to the, let's say I created a character data array with the value JAVA. Okay, so this character array contains these 4 characters, and then I created the object of the string class using the new operator. Let's say string str is equals to new string, and to the constructor I will pass this data character array reference. So string plays a vital role in almost all the Java applications. In fact, if you see, around 30 to 60% of the objects created in the typical Java application are nothing but the string objects. So why string objects are used extensively? Okay, why strings is most widely used in the Java? So let's try to understand that. So first, most of the Java application deals with the textual data. So whether it's a user input, file content, database fields, whatever different fields you will see in the UI, like all the logs message, all the error message, all these are in the form of text, right? So we need to store, process and manipulate this kind of textual data efficiently and effectively, and that is where string comes into the picture. So Java provides string class, and by using this string class and inbuilt methods in the string class, we will be able to handle all this textual data. We can able to store the data, you can process and manipulate this textual data using the inbuilt methods in the string class very easily. Okay, so with the help of string objects, handling the text becomes simple and powerful, and manipulation of this text data becomes very easy due to the rich set of built-in methods in the string class. So another reason why string is more popular or most widely used in the Java is due to the property known as immutability. So all the string objects in the Java are immutable. So what is meant by immutable? So immutable, that means once you create a string objects and you provide some value to that object, okay, so value cannot be changed for that string object. So if you try to do some modification in that content of that string objects, a new object will be created in the heap memory. Okay, so this provides a extra layer of security by using the string objects to your Java application. So another reason or another feature that string class provides is SCP. So SCP stands for string constant pool. So this is a special area provided in the heap memory, and in this area we will be able to reuse our string objects. Okay, so this makes string more memory efficient. So string class, which is just an object that represents a sequence of the characters, and we have seen why string objects are heavily used in the Java application. So there can be multiple reasons. So most important reason is easily we can store the different kinds of textual data using the string objects, and there are lots of built-in methods available in the string class by which we can handle and manipulate this data easily. Next thing is it provides the extra layer of security and stability with the immutability property. String object makes it memory efficient by using the objects created in the SCP. Okay, so you will be able to reuse the objects from the SCP instead of creating a new object every time in the heap memory. So now let's try to understand how we can create string objects in the Java. Okay, what are the different ways by which we can create the objects? So first method to create the string class object is by using the new keyword. So when you use this method to create the string objects, there will be 2 objects will be created. Okay, so one object will be created in the heap area. Okay, heap area in your memory, and second object will be created in the SCP for reusing purpose. Okay, so in future if we need to use a string object with the same content, we will be able to use that object from this SCP, string constant pool. So in the heap area there can be object with the same content. Okay, duplicate objects can be possible, but in the SCP it is not possible. Okay, so you cannot create object with the same content in the SCP. That is the important property. And second way by which we can create the string objects is by using the string literals. Okay, so similar to the array where we declare the array and in the curly bracket we provide the values directly, which creates the array object with that content. Similarly, here also we can create the object of the string class, directly provide the content, and that with that content, your string object will be created in the SCP. So one object will be created in our SCP area, and this SCP belongs to the heap area only. Okay, it is a special area of the heap. So in this case also, if you try to create string literal objects with the same content, and if Java finds that object with the same content is already there in the SCP, it is not going to create a new object. Okay, so unnecessary wastage of the memory get reduced by reusing the objects from this SCP. Okay, so let's try to understand this with the practical examples now. So here I am going to create the object of the string class. So capital S, then provide the object reference. Let's say S1 is equals to new string. So as you can see, it is coming from the java.lang package. Okay, so to the constructor of this string class, we can provide the content of the objects as per our requirement. So let's say here I am creating the object with the content Java. So here, after execution of this statement, here we are creating the S1 object by using the new keyword. Okay, so after this, two objects will be created. One object will be created in the heap area, and one object will be placed in the SCP. Okay, so every time when you use the new keyword, a fresh and new object will be created in the heap. But as we don't have any object created in the SCP with this Java content, Java is going to create one object in the SCP, and that object will not have any reference. So this S1 is going to point the object which got created in the heap area. Now here we are creating the string S2 using the string literals. Okay, we are directly assigning the value. So here object will be created in the SCP only. It is not going to create any object in the heap. So one object will be created in the SCP with this automation content, and this S2 will point to that object. Let's say I am creating another object using the string literals. Okay, let's say I am giving it S3. So in this case, Java is not going to create any object. Okay, because in the SCP it will check there is already an available object with the same content. Okay, and it is going to reuse that existing object. Okay, so S2 and S3 will point to the same object in the SCP with this automation content. Okay, so that's why this method will save your memory, as it is reusing the object from the SCP. But in case when you use the new keyword to create the object, it is going to create a new or fresh object in the heap area every time. So that's why it will consume more memory, and it is not a memory efficient method to create the string objects. So let's say, let's create one more object here, S4, and here also I am creating the object with the same content. So in the first statement we already created this Java object, right? So one object got created in the heap and one in the SCP with the Java content. So after running this statement, Java again is going to create a fresh and new object with the same content Java in the heap. Okay, so one object will be created compulsory. Okay, one object created in the heap. And for placing the object in the SCP, Java will find that there is already an existing object with this Java content. Okay, so in this case, it will not create any object in the SCP. So S4 will point to the object in the heap with this Java content. So let's see a few more combinations. So what will happen here? I am creating the S5, and this time I am adding automation as a content for the string objects. So what will happen after running this statement? Okay, so as a rule, it is compulsory going to create an object in the heap with this automation content, and it will see that in the SCP there is already an object created with this automation content, so it will not create any new object in the SCP. So let's say I am creating S6 now with this Selenium content. So in this case also, similar to our first line, it is going to create one object in the heap and one object in the SCP, because SCP do not have any object with this Selenium content. A new object will be placed in the SCP for reuse purpose. I am just covering these combinations to understand how the objects are getting created with the new keyword and the literals. So again, if I am creating the object with the same content, so what will happen in this case? it is not going to create any new object at all, because in SCP we already have a existing object with the Selenium content which got created after running this line, right? So here we will not create any object in the SCP. So S7 will point to the object in the SCP with this Selenium content. So in this statement, when an object is placed in the SCP with the Selenium content, it do not have any reference, right? Because S6 will point to the object which got created in the heap. Okay, so object in the SCP with the Selenium content do not have any reference after this line. But after running this line, S1 will point to that object in the SCP with the Selenium content. Okay, so let's take one more example. Let's say I'm creating another string S8, and this time I'm going to concat S7. Okay, S7 is already there. Concat with, let's say, testing. Okay, so after running this statement, can we guess how many objects will be created in heap or SCP? So first, Java will check this is again as a string literal. Okay, so it is going to check in the SCP whether we have any object with this testing content. If it is not, then it will create one object in the SCP with the testing content. So for this S1, we already have an object with the Selenium content in the SCP. So here, no object will be created in the SCP for this Selenium. But due to this runtime operation, okay, concat operation, there will be a new object created in the heap area. Okay, so S7 plus testing. So it will give you Selenium testing. So one object will be created in the heap area with this Selenium testing content. So at the runtime, if there are any changes in the objects, compulsory one object will be created with that change in the heap area. Okay, so object with this testing content in the SCP will be without any reference, but whatever object got created in the heap will have this asset reference. So now I have commented all the lines. Let's try to understand this combination now. So as per the first line, it will create a new object in the heap area with the Selenium content, and S6 will point to that object. And one object will be placed in the SCP with this Selenium for reuse purpose. Okay, so here we got two objects, right? Then after running this statement, a fresh and new object will be created in the heap area with the automation content, and S5 will point to that object, right? And one more object will be placed in the SCP for reuse purpose with this automation content. Okay, as we don't have any already existing object in the SCP with this automation content. So here also we got two objects. Now string S7 is equal to Selenium. So as it is a literal, Java is going to check in the SCP first. So SCP, we already have an object with this Selenium content. Okay, so will it create any new object? No, because in SCP we cannot create any duplicate object. That area is only for reusing the objects with the same content. So here 0 objects will be created. Now again here we already seen with the testing, one object will be created in the SCP. Okay, and another object will be created in the heap with the concat operation. Okay, due to this runtime operation, one object will be created in the heap area with the Selenium testing. So again here we got two objects. Okay, so here currently S8 is pointing to the object in the heap area with this Selenium testing content, right? But at this line number 29, we are reassigning the value for S8. So what will happen after this line? So here we are concatenating S6 with S5. So both S6 and S5 are pointing to the objects which are in the heap area with the Selenium content and automation content. So due to this runtime operation, okay, on these two variables S6 and S5, we are performing concat operation at the runtime. Okay, so due to this operation, one new object will be created with the content Selenium automation in the heap area. So after this line, a new object will be created in the heap with the value Selenium automation, and S8 is going to point to this newly created object now in the heap. So previously it was pointing to the object with this Selenium testing content in the heap, but here we have reassigned its value now. So this object with Selenium testing will not have any reference now, and that will be eligible for the garbage collection. So up to this line it has the asset reference, but after running this line, asset is pointing to the new object now with this Selenium automation. Okay, so this object is unreferenced now and eligible for garbage collection. Okay, so Java is going to clean up all these objects without any reference by calling garbage collection process. So in total, if you see, we got 2 plus 2 4, here we got 0, here we got 2 6, and this 7. Okay, so total 7 objects got created after running all these statements. So here, as we discuss, a new object created in the heap with this Selenium automation. So one more question is, will it create a object in the SCP as well? Because we don't have any object with this Selenium automation in the SCP, right? So will it create a new object, or will it place a new object in the SCP as well? Okay, so in this case it will not create any object in the SCP. Okay, so if you remember, it is going to place the object in the SCP when we are creating the object using the literals. Okay, so here you can see S6 is a variable and S5 is also a variable. They are not the literals. Okay, and due to this it will only create an object in the heap with this content. So it will not create any object in the SCP. So that's all for this session, guys. I hope as a beginner level you have a better understanding now about the string class. We have seen about basic things, why string class is used heavily in the Java applications, and we have seen about the difference between this object creation using these two methods. So in the next session we are going to talk about the different inbuilt methods in the string class. So thanks for watching, guys. I will see you in the next video soon.